Hello everyone, my name is Marco Avalos. In this presentation, I will be presenting to you an environmental issue, that is air pollution. On my research, I focused on the southern part of the state of California, such as Los Angeles County and Long Beach. There are several highways and port complexes in these cities. There are also low-income residents living in these areas adjacent to the port and freeways. The question is, how big of a problem is it? Well, if we remember a few years back, around the 1950s, 1960s, the air quality in major cities around the country was very poor. Children couldn't go out to play in the background and the playgrounds. The air quality was very poor. Taking that into account, we can say that there has been improvements, but there are still environmental injustices to be addressed. Next, I want to point out CO2 or carbon dioxide. These are the main contributors to greenhouse gas emissions and global warming. So let me explain how this works. Incoming solar radiation bounces into the earth or the ground. About 23% is absorbed by the atmosphere. About 50% is absorbed by the surface. Also, about 30% is reflected away by the surface or atmosphere. The heat captured and radiated by greenhouse gases warms the planet. The greenhouse effect has been scientifically linked to human activities such as fossil fuel burning. With that said, now let's take a look at what releases gases or CO2. There are point and non-point sources. And basically, point sources are the ones that you can point at with your finger, and non-point sources are the ones you cannot. There are also stationary sources like power plants, fires, factories, refineries, etc. Mobile sources like trucks, buses, passenger cars, and various others. Also the burning of fossil fuels like coal, etc. Next, as I mentioned previously, the city of Long Beach and Los Angeles, where air pollution is prevalent due to congestion of port complexes, freeways, commuters such as HDDT, heavy duty diesel truck, and also ordinary vehicles. Now that we know where some of this pollution is coming from, let's take a look at the consequences in people's health and in the environment. I want to talk about particulate matter, since it's particularly concerning in people's health. Some of these particles aren't big enough to be perceived by the eye. However, they can still be inhaled. Here are some of the consequences or health concerns of particulate matter. It can irritate the lungs, damage to lung tissues. It's concerning because it can potentially cause respiratory disease, which include lung cancer, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Being exposed to air pollution is concerning for your health, but particulate matter is even more so. Now, let's discuss environmental injustice. Anyone exposed to air pollution can potentially lead to health issues. However, low-income families, older adults, children, minority groups such as Hispanic and Black communities seem to be the most vulnerable ones. There is a correlation between low-income neighborhoods and exposure to hazardous materials, as well as poor air quality. In many cases, these communities, these neighborhoods, lack the social, political, and economic resources. For that reason, illnesses or health issues are more prevalent in these neighborhoods. We need a solution. We need to address the problem. And here are possible solutions. We have a category of technology and behavior. Let's talk first about technology. A possible solution can be electric cars, since we would not be burning fossil fuels, though we still have to produce electricity and we must find a way to produce it sustainably. Another one can be air purifier, and this can be in a small scale like in your house or in a big city or part of the city, as well as alternatives to fossil fuels to produce electricity like wind farms, solar energy, etc. And a great solution also would be green cities. Now let's discuss on our right behavior. We can drive less or simply not drive. Also, we can use public transportation, or when driving, use cruise control on the highway. Another one is combine your errands into one trip. And lastly, but certainly not least, keep your car tuned and support the smog check program. These are great solutions. Besides technology and behavior, another possible solution can be policies from the government, such as the cap and trade system. I will explain to you how it works at the best of my ability. A cap is imposed on emitters. Allowances are then distributed and sold. Each allowance is a license to emit 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, and the total amount of allowances is equal to the cap on greenhouse gas emissions. This works as an incentive for corporations to emit less or invest in cleaner technologies. Allowances can be then traded amongst corporations. For example, this would be the cap or the limit, and we will call emitter B and emitter A. We can see that emitter A is not polluting as much, so he can trade some of their allowances or licenses to emitter B. In conclusion, Air pollution has negative effects on people's health and the environment. Addressing the problem is challenging. However, with technology and collective cooperation, it can be done. Equally important is addressing environmental injustices.